Welcome back. We got off to a good start in the first session, getting oriented at the piano and getting our hands on it to move our fingers and play our first progression. And today, we'll learn our first melody and start learning to feel spaces and silence in the music with the same focus as we play notes. We'll also learn 3 chords, C, F, and G, by name, shape, and position on the keyboard. We're playing things on the piano without having to read music, but now we'll get started with learning how to read music by learning the notes of the treble clef, which are the notes our right hand will be playing. So let's get into it. Now we're going to start learning a tune most of us will know, an oldie but a goodie, When the Saints Go Marching In. And it goes like this. This entire melody fits within the 5 fingers, starting on middle C in this one hand position. And the song uses the same position and notes, C to G, as our 5 finger exercise that we learned last session. We'll learn this song based on the fingers being used, how many steps are between the notes, how long the notes last, where the beat is, and how the melody is put together as a melodic statement. The first step is to get the melody in your ear and the pulse in your body. It helps to sing the melody with or without the lyrics as you play it. If you know the melody or the lyrics, sing it along with me. 1, 2, 3. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Lord, I love to be in the number when the saints go marching in. Hearing the melody and rhythm accurately will connect you to where it sits on the keyboard and help you play it in time with the pulse. Let's start by breaking this melody down into phrases, which we'll do from here on when learning melodies and other elements of a tune. A phrase is a complete musical thought, the musical equivalent of a sentence. Phrases can be long, like this. Or they can be short, as is the case with the first phrase of When the Saints Go Marching In. So try to follow along at the keyboard as we break down these first 2 phrases of When the Saints Go Marching In. Let's look at the first phrase of the melody. It starts on middle C, which we'll play with the first finger. The next note is 2 steps higher, E, which we'll play with the 3rd finger. Next we go a step higher to F with the 4th finger, then another step higher to G with the 5th finger. These 4 notes make up the first phrase of the tune. 1, 2, 3. The next phrase is an exact repetition of the first phrase. 1, 2, 3. So far we have these 2 phrases. 1, 2, 3. Rest, rest. In between these identical first 2 phrases are 2 beats of silence, which I indicated aloud by going rest, rest. Silences or spaces in music should be felt as much as notes are played. When we start reading music, we'll eventually see these beats of silence on written music as rests. But for now, Just understand that silences or spaces in music are to be counted just like the notes. So our first two phrases of When the Saints go like this. 1, 2, 3. Rest, rest. The third phrase starts with the same 4 notes as the first two phrases, but adds 4 more. So here's the 4 notes we added after G. We move down 2 steps to E with the third finger, and then down 2 more steps to C with the first finger, then back up to E using the third finger, and ending on D with the second finger. So that whole 8-note third phrase goes like this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And notice that that last note, which is D, lasts for 3 beats. 1, 2, 3. So the first 3 phrases put together are 1, 2, 3. Rest, rest. Rest, rest. 1, 2, 3. Next we have a phrase that begins differently than the first 3. This fourth phrase starts on E with the third finger, goes down a step to D with the second finger, and down to C with the first finger. Next we play the C again, go up to E with the third finger, and up to G with the fifth finger. We repeat that G and play the F just below it. So that whole phrase looks and sounds like this. 1, 2, 3. Now if we add that phrase to our first 3, we get this. 1, 2, 3. Rest, rest. Rest, rest. 1, 2, 3. The last phrase sounds like this. It begins on E with the third finger, goes up to F with the fourth finger, to G with the fifth finger, then back down to E with the third finger, then C with the first finger, then to D with the second finger, and we end where we started on middle C with the first finger. So the final phrase goes, so to review, here's our 5 phrases. The first phrase, then the second phrase, which is a repeat of the first phrase, then the third phrase that starts like the first 2 and goes somewhere else. The fourth phrase, then finally the fifth phrase. Now we're going to practice putting these phrases together. Let's begin by dropping our hands to our sides, shaking them out a bit, and concentrating on feeling our hands getting rid of the tension. This tune will have a pulse, so we'll begin by establishing a slow and steady pulse. 1, 2, 3, 4, and feeling the beat deep in our body. We'll take a breath or 2 and move the right hand slowly, and then we'll play the first phrase after counting ourselves in like so. 1, 2, 3. And after we play the notes of this little phrase, we'll feel the 2 little rests to complete it, like so. 1, 2, 3. Rest, rest. Then drop the hand and let it relax. We'll continue doing this until we can play this phrase easily. Then we'll go on to the next phrase after relaxing and counting that one in. Remember that the first and the second phrase are the same thing. So let's play that identical second phrase. 1, 2, 3. Now let's do the same process for phrase 3. Relax, feel the pulse, count in and play. 1, 2, 3. And now phrase 4. 1, 2, 3. Anytime we stumble on the fingering notes or timing of the phrase, go back and learn it by rewinding the DVD to where I'm breaking down that phrase that you're working on. And the DVD menu is broken down to make things easier to find. And remember, our practice model will be slow it down and break it down. It's important to play each phrase with its correct rhythm. If you have to slow down the pulse you're feeling to play what you're working on in time, even if you have to slow it substantially, then do so. The important thing is to play phrases in time and relaxed and with the right fingering notes and rhythm. When you can play each phrase in time with the right fingering and relaxed, then you're ready to put the whole thing together slowly. So now let's count in and play the fifth and final phrase. 1, 2, 3. Now that you understand how the whole melody goes, let's try to play together the first two phrases back to back. 1, 2, 3. Rest, 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 rest. Now play those two again, this time adding the third phrase. 1, 2, 3. Rest, 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 rest. After doing these three phrases, drop your hand off the keyboard and relax it. Count yourself in again once your hand feels relaxed, and this time we'll add the fourth phrase. 1, 2, 3. Rest, 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 rest. Two, three. And this time we'll add the fifth phrase to complete the tune. 1, 2, 3. Rest, 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 rest. 1, 2, 3. So this was a detailed, methodical way of practicing a simple melody. And that brings us to our next nugget, which is this. When learning a melody or a piece, break it down into phrases and then put them together as slowly as you need to. Gradually work them up to the tempo you want to play them at. The goal is to get you in the habit of mastering the things you practice. This is where you really connect with the joy of music making at any level, hearing and feeling what you play and playing with rhythm and flow. Whenever we play more than two notes at the same time, we refer to it as a chord, and chords provide the harmonic framework and much of the color and sound of music. With 88 keys and 10 fingers, the piano gives you the possibility of a huge variety of chords. Here's just a few chords, and we'll be covering these in sessions to come. C major, which we'll cover this session, C minor, C diminished, C2, C augmented, C6, C7, C major 7, and C minor 7. Like I said, we'll learn how to make all these chords in sessions to come and a variety of ways to play them. We'll start with a chord that's the basic foundation of most of the music we know in our entire system of chords, the major chord. The term major refers to the way the chord sounds and to how it's constructed. We'll define that construction in the next session when we talk about intervals. Right now, we just want to find three major chords by shape and location on the keyboard. Because these major chords are made up of three notes, they're called triads. And a triad is any group of three notes played as a chord. For now, we'll use the white keys on the piano to construct three major triads: C, F, and G. Let's start with the C major triad. We'll start on middle C, and the C major triad contains the notes C, E, and G. Check out the shape of this chord and how it feels under your fingers. And we're using the fingers 1, 3, and 5. The unplayed notes are under fingers 2 and 4. This same chord can be played with its bottom note on C all the way up the piano, and then starting back on the C triad with the bottom note on middle C, we can play it all the way down the piano. Try playing a C major triad with the left hand with middle C on the bottom. Now move the chord down an octave, then down another octave. And notice as we play the C major triad 2 octaves below middle C, the chord has kind of a muddy sound. Starting on F, we can use the same shape as we did with the C triad to make an F triad. F, A, and C, and we'll use the same fingering, 1, 3, and 5. As with the C triad, we can make this chord starting on any F on the piano, going up, and then going back to this F triad in the middle piano. We can play it going down the piano, or play it with the left hand. And now we're back down in the muddy register for playing chords. Starting a step up from that F triad near the middle of the piano on G, we can use the same shape and fingering to make a G major triad. G, B, and D. And let's move that one up the piano. And then starting where we started on that G triad in the middle of the piano, let's move it down the piano. Notice that as I play the C triad up and down the piano, that the meatiest sounding triads are the ones in proximity to middle C, in the middle of the piano. The different notes or pitches in a chord have different functions. So let's talk about the chord tones and their functions for a minute. Triads, like the ones we've been working with, have 3 notes in each chord. And the most fundamental note is referred to as the root. The root of the chord is the letter of the musical alphabet of the chord you're playing. For example, on a C major triad, the root is C. In an F major triad, the root would be F. The way we're playing these chords now, so that the root is the bottom note, is called root position. And once again, when a chord has its root on the bottom, the chord is in root position. The F and G we learned are also in root position, with their roots F and G on the bottom notes of the chord. By playing the chord tones in a different order, for example, if we played the notes of a C triad starting on E and played E, G, and C, we're still playing a C major triad, but now it's in a different position. This different position will be called an inversion of the chord, and we'll get into those soon. The C, F, and G major chords not only share a common shape, but they have a relationship harmonically that enables them to be combined to make the chords of a song. It's harmonic framework. Chords played in a sequence are referred to as progressions, and chords are designated on music or on chord charts by chord symbols. Chord symbols allow us to play the chords without having all the notes written out. The symbols for C, F, and G major chords are the letters C, F, and G. And these groups are most often of 3 or 4 beats. And the group's beats are called bars or measures. And each bar will be divided by a bar line with the chord symbols above the bar. Slashes are written to indicate how many beats within the bar each chord is played. Here's a 4-bar progression written out in bars. The progression is 1 bar each of C, F, and G, and 1 more of F. And there are 4 slashes per chord to indicate each chord gets 4 beats. It's nice to have the flexibility of playing a chord chart or reading notes, and we'll start on note reading later this session. Now let's go ahead and play this progression using C, F, and G while reading the chord chart. We'll play that chord chart with the right hand only. And let's play 1 held out chord per bar while tapping the left foot for the 4 counts of each chord, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. F, 2, 3, 4. G, 2, 3, 4. F, 2, 3, 4. And resolve it back to C. Now we'll play the progression twice and resolve it back to C. So the chart will look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. F, 2, 3, 4. G, 2, 3, 4. F, 2, 3, 4. Now back to C, 2, 3, 4. F, 2, 3, 4. G, 2, 3, 4. F, 2, 3, 4, and back to C. Playing C, F, and G major chords in that order is a very common progression. Now let's put them in a 2-bar progression, playing C for 2 beats, F for 2 beats, and G for 4 beats. We'll start with just the right hand. After I count it in, the progression sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, F, G, and C, F, G, 2, 3, 4, and back to C. As you move the chords, feel your forearm moving this fixed shape and fingering from position to position. Eventually we'll use inversions to connect these chords more smoothly, like this. But at first we want to establish where to find them in root position and how they relate to each other in that position. Now let's add the left hand to our 2-bar C, F, G progression. The left hand part uses 3 notes and begins by starting on the C below middle C with the first finger, going down to the F below that C with the 5th finger, then up a step to G with the 4th finger. So here's the left hand part of this progression played in time. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, F, G, 2, 3, 4. C, F, G, 2, 3, 4. Then back to C. Now let's add that left hand part to the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, F, G, 2, 3, 4. C, F, G, 2, 3, 4. And then back to C. There are many songs that use these 2 progressions, such as Twist and Shout, Good Lovin', and many others. We're playing the progression in the key of C, and a key is the tonal center of a song, represented by a letter of the musical alphabet. The chords in the recordings of those songs I just named may use keys other than C, and they may use other inversions of the chords, but their relationship within the key are the same. Music is not a visual medium, but a heard and felt one. Ultimately, it's about hearing, feeling, and playing music. Learning how to read music gives us access to a huge variety of musical resources and can be a valuable means to an end. To really get into playing classical music, reading is essential. To play rock and roll, not so much. Finding the notes and counting the rhythms from written music can be painstaking at first, but it gets easier with practice. Let's go back to our first chord progression that we learned in the first session. We learned how to play this by rote, but now let's look at it on written music. In conjunction with rote learning, developing the ear, learning how to make chords and connect them, and experimenting at the piano, reading music should be a bridge, not a barrier to your connection to the piano. So let's start building that bridge and begin to learn to read music, starting with the right hand. The notes the right hand plays are usually found on the treble clef, which looks like this. The notes are written on, above, or below 5 parallel lines called the staff, which looks like this. There are letter names that correspond with each line of the music staff and treble clef. And the notes of the 5 lines of the treble clef are, from bottom to top, E, G, B, D, and F. These are easily remembered by the phrase, every good boy does fine. That E is 2 steps up from middle C, so the notes of the lines of the treble clef are found here on the piano. E, G, B, D, and F. And then going back down the lines, we have F, D, B, G, and E. The spaces of the treble clef are, from bottom to top, F, A, C, and E. And they are easily remembered by the word face. On the piano, they're played here. F, A, C, E. And then going back down, E, C, A, and F. Notes found above and below the staff use added lines to show their proximity to the staff, and these lines are called ledger lines. Here's the E on the lowest line of the staff. And here's the first space below the staff, which is D. If I go 1 note lower, I get to the first line below the staff that uses a ledger line, and that's middle C. Now let's go above the staff. Here's the F on the top line of the staff. The first space above the staff is a G. If I go 1 note higher, I get to the first ledger line above the staff, and this is the note A. Reading music involves translating where these notes on and around the staff are found on the piano, along with the rhythms they're played in and their dynamics and articulation. Since we've been introduced to the notes of the treble clef, let's look at the notes of When the Saints Go Marching In, written out on the treble clef, and as I play it down, watch these notes go by on the staff. We won't worry about reading the notes right now, or rest values and their symbols. We'll get into that later. I just want you to see the notes of this melody we're learning on the lines and spaces that indicate them on the treble clef. 1, 2, 3. Rest, 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 rest. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. It'll take some time before we'll be able to read a written melody like that, but we'll keep learning When the Saints Go Marching In, phrase by phrase in the workshop. We'll break down the notes, fingerings, and rhythms. Now we've learned to name and locate 3 major chords, and we'll start learning how to make progressions with them and how to use them in many tunes we already know. We began the process of learning to read music by naming the notes of the treble clef staff. Hopefully, by being able to play a melody or chord progression, then see what it looks like written out, we're demystifying the concept of music reading. In the workshop, we'll work further on playing and implementing these concepts. I think you'll have a ball playing that When the Saints melody with a great New Orleans groove on the play-along CD. So enjoy.